Enter, my child. The Lord awaits your confession. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been an eternity since my last confession, or perhaps no time at all. Time has lost its meaning for me.
Time is a construct, my son, but the soul's burden is real. Unburden yourself. Speak your truth.
My truth. It is a twisted, knotted thing, Father. A serpent that devours itself. The world knows my name, and they spit it out like bitter ash. They say I was a betrayer, a thief, a man corrupted by 30 pieces of silver. They say I sold my master for greed.
And is that the truth you come to confess?
No, Father, that is the lie. The convenient, palatable lie that humanity tells itself to simplify the unfathomable. Oh, that silver was there, certainly. A paltry sum, wasn't it? 30 pieces, a slave's price. But it was never about the silver, never. It was a prop, a necessary, demeaning prop in a play I believed myself to be directing.
If not greed, then what drove you to such an act, my son?
Love, Father. A furious, impatient, consuming love. And a faith so absolute, so unyielding, it became a monstrous thing. A faith that blinded me, twisted my purpose, and ultimately damned me. I loved him, Father, more fiercely, perhaps, than any of the others. I saw his power, his majesty, the divine spark that flickered beneath the humble carpenter's son. I saw the kingdom of God not as some ethereal promise in the heavens, but as a tangible, earthly dominion ready to be seized. And he hesitated.
He hesitated?
Yes, he spoke of turning the other cheek, of loving one's enemies, of rendering.
Caesar, he gathered the poor, the sick, the outcasts, and he healed them, yes, but he did not act, not decisively, not like a king. He spoke in parables, riddles, metaphors. When the people yearned for a trumpet blast, for a sword unsheathed, for a leader to cast off the Roman yoke and reclaim our rightful heritage. I saw the legions of angels at his command, the very fabric of creation bending to his will, and yet he walked among us, meek as a lamb, speaking of humility and sacrifice.
And you believed he should have acted differently?
I believed he must act differently. He was the Messiah, the Son of God. He had the power to shatter empires, to cleanse the temple with fire, to establish a reign of justice that would endure for 1,000 years. But he taught patience. He preached forgiveness. He spoke of a kingdom not of this world, yet all the while the Romans tightened their grip, the Sanhedrin grew more corrupt, and the people suffered. I saw the potential, the divine potential, lying dormant, veiled by a chosen meekness I could not comprehend. It was maddening, Father, agonizing. Every miracle, every healing, every word of power he uttered simply confirmed to me what he could do, what he should do, but refused to do.
You sought to force his hand.
Exactly, Father, precisely. Not to betray him, but to compel him, to push him to the precipice, to back him into a corner where his only recourse, his only path forward, was to unleash the power I knew he possessed. I reasoned that he needed a catalyst, a crisis of such magnitude that it would strip away the humble facade and reveal the Lion of Judah. The authorities, the Sanhedrin.
Romans, the Sanhedrin. They were the perfect instruments. By delivering him into their hands, by orchestrating a confrontation, I believed I was providing the ultimate stage for his true glory to manifest.
And the kiss.
The kiss. Oh, the kiss. The world sees it as the ultimate symbol of treachery, does it not? A serpent's embrace, a mark of deceit. But it was not. It was a signal. A prearranged, desperate signal. We were in the garden, in the dark. The guards would not know him. Someone had to identify him. It was a necessary part of the plan, my plan. I believed it was our plan, in a way. That he knew, somehow, what I intended. That he would understand my desperate love, my desire for him to fulfill his destiny. The kiss was not a mark of betrayal, Father, but the spark I believed would ignite the revolution. The first step towards his earthly coronation. I saw it as a desperate act of loyalty, misguided though it was, to my king. A desperate act. A desperate act born of desperate love and an even more desperate faith. I imagined the scene, Father. The soldiers, the priests, the Roman cohorts surrounding him. They would seize him, bind him, drag him before Pilate, before Caiaphas, and then, at the moment of ultimate peril, when all seemed lost, he would simply act. He would call down legions of angels, or smite them with a word, or simply vanish in a blaze of glory, leaving their captors bewildered and humiliated. And then the people, seeing his power, his undisputed divine authority, would rise. The kingdom would be established. Jerusalem would be purified. Rome would crumble. This was my vision. This was the glorious outcome I believed I was bringing into being.
Was precipitating.
And when that did not happen?
When it did not happen, that, Father, is where the true torment began. That is the essence of my confession, not the act itself, but the horrifying, soul-shattering realization of my monumental, cosmic error. I watched, Father. I watched as they dragged him away. I watched as they mocked him, beat him, crowned him with thorns. Every fiber of my being screamed for him to act, to reveal himself, to stop the madness. I waited for the legions, for the fire, for the earth to swallow them whole. But he remained silent. He endured. He allowed it. And with every blow, every insult, every drop of blood, my carefully constructed edifice of faith began to crumble, brick by agonizing brick.
You saw his suffering.
I saw it, and I did not understand. Not then. I still clung to the hope that he was simply allowing it to escalate, to make the ultimate demonstration of his power even more dramatic, more undeniable. Even when they nailed him to the cross, even then a part of me, a mad, desperate part, believed he would descend from it, whole and glorious, and annihilate his tormentors. But he did not. He died. He truly, utterly died. And with his last breath, Father, my world, my purpose, my entire understanding of God and kingdom shattered into a million irreparable fragments.
And the silver, what became of it?
The silver, the blood money, it became a curse. When I saw what I had done, what my actions had wrought, not what my intentions had sought, I tried to return it. I threw it back at the priests, those sanctimonious hypocrites, screaming that I had betrayed innocent blood, but they merely scoffed.
Would not take it back. It was a price paid, a transaction completed, and in that moment I understood. The silver was not just a prop, it was a symbol of my arrogance, of my presumption, of my belief that I could manipulate the divine. It was the price. of my blindness.
You speak of blindness. What did you finally see?
I saw the horror, Father. The true, unvarnished horror, not the horror of betraying a man, for I believed I was serving a greater purpose, but the horror of attempting to force the hand of God Himself, of believing I knew His plan better than He did, of trying to drag the Son of God from His spiritual throne and force Him unto an earthly one. I, a mere mortal, with my impatient earthly understanding, had dared to dictate the terms of salvation. I had sought to circumvent the very sacrifice He came to make.
And that is your torment?
It is the essence of it, yes. The torment is not the guilt of selling Him, for I never believed I was selling Him to His death. The torment is the crushing, suffocating realization that my blind, arrogant, self-serving faith turned me into the very instrument of the crucifixion I sought so desperately to avoid. I tried to save Him from the cross, to force Him to claim an earthly kingdom, and in my hubris, I delivered Him to that very cross. I became the unwitting, yet ultimately culpable, tool of His suffering. I was the architect of the very thing I abhorred. My love, my misguided, impatient love, became the hammer that drove the nails. My faith, my fervent, arrogant faith, became the spear that pierced His side.
You believed you were serving Him.
I did. With every fiber of my being, I believed I was serving His true destiny. I believed I was liberating Him from the constraints of His own humility, from the perceived passivity of His mission. I thought He needed a push, a catalyst. I thought I was that catalyst. I saw myself as a necessary evil, a painful but essential step towards His triumph. I truly believed that once He was cornered, once He was truly threatened, He would unleash His power, assert His dominion, and establish the kingdom we all longed for. I saw a warrior king, and I believed I was giving Him the battle He needed to fight.
But He was a different kind of king. A different kind of king.
That is the heart of my damnation, Father. The realization that He never sought an earthly throne. He never wanted to crush His enemies with force. His kingdom was not of this world, not in the way I understood it. His victory was not over Rome, but over sin and death itself. His power was not for destruction, but for redemption. And I, in my earthly, limited, arrogant understanding, tried to redefine His mission. I tried to bend the divine will to my own human perception of what was right, what was powerful, what was glorious. I saw the superficial, the political, the immediate, and I completely missed the profound, the spiritual, the eternal.
This realization must have been a profound shock.
A shock that ripped my soul asunder. It was not a gradual dawning, Father. It was an instantaneous, blinding flash of pure, unadulterated horror the moment I understood He would not descend from that cross. The moment I understood His words, "It is finished,"
Not a prelude to a divine display of power, but the culmination of His sacrifice. Every teaching I had dismissed as mere metaphor, every gentle word I had seen as weakness, every act of humility I had viewed as procrastination, suddenly became clear, horrifyingly, devastatingly clear. He had been telling us all along. He had been showing us. But I, in my supreme arrogance, thought I knew better. I thought I could force His hand, accelerate His plan, bypass the suffering. I thought I could make Him the Messiah I wanted, not the Messiah He truly was.
And the pain of that realization.
It is a pain that eclipses any physical torment. It is the pain of ultimate futility, of cosmic irony. To have loved so fiercely, to have believed so absolutely, to have acted with such conviction, only to discover that every action, every desperate attempt to help, merely served to facilitate the very outcome I sought to prevent. I tried to save him from death, and I delivered him to it. I tried to make him a king of men, and I helped make him a sacrifice for all mankind. My hands, Father, are not stained with the blood of betrayal, but with the blood of a misguided love that became the instrument of the beloved's suffering. That is the truth. That is the burden.
What do you seek now in this confession?
I seek understanding, perhaps, or simply to lay bare the true nature of my sin. The world condemns me for greed, for betrayal, for a simple act of avarice. But my sin is far more complex, far more insidious. It is the sin of intellectual pride, of spiritual arrogance, of attempting to usurp the role of divine providence. It is the sin of trying to make God conform to my own limited vision rather than submitting my vision to God. And the torment is knowing that I was not a simple villain, but a man consumed by a twisted, misdirected devotion, a devotion that led to the ultimate tragedy. I am not simply a betrayer. I am a monument to misguided faith.
And that monument is your cross to bear.
My cross indeed, Father, a cross of my own making, forged from my own hubris. I thought I was forging a crown for him, a scepter of earthly power. Instead, I forged the very nails that pierced his flesh, the very thorns that crowned his head. I thought I was bringing about his triumph, and instead, I became the catalyst for his ultimate sacrifice. The irony, Father, is a torment more profound than any hellfire. To have been so close, to have walked by his side, to have witnessed his miracles, and yet to have so fundamentally misunderstood his nature, his purpose, his very being. It is a horror that transcends mere guilt. It is the horror of having been the unwitting yet ultimately culpable architect of the greatest act of love and suffering the world has ever known. And to know that my actions, born of a twisted love, were necessary for that divine plan to unfold, that is the chilling truth. That is the confession.
Your burden is immense, my son.
It is, and it always will be, for I am Judas, not the betrayer of greed, but the fool of a misguided faith, the man who loved too much and understood too little, the catalyst of a salvation he desperately tried to prevent, and the instrument of a tragically facilitated sacrifice.
And the horror, Father, is that I still cannot escape the echo of his silence, or the crushing weight of the throne he never wanted.